let's get started. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Understanding and Integrating iFormBuilder Data. My name is Elaha Egbal. I'm part of the customer success team here at iFormBuilder. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Berit.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for that introduction, Elahe, and thank you all for joining us for today's webinar session. So like Elahe said, today's session is really about integrating and automating your workflow with iFormBuilder. Our topics, I'm going to do a quick, or not so much a quick customer solution demo, but we will go through a demo together, and I'll share from end to end what that process looks like. I do have one of my colleagues on this call as well named Tak, and I'm so thankful that she's able to join us. She will help me with that as far as more of the technical questions if you have advanced questions on the integration that I show you. That being said, it is what I'll be showing you is just really how the workflow is processed. The next topic is just getting started with integration, the ins and outs that you should know if you are preparing yourself to really automate your workflow and make your life a lot simpler by doing so. Then we'll go through some of the data feeds and the post data URLs, some integration ideas, what custom web services are and how to get started using them, as well as we'll take some time to go through some of the newer releases in iFormBuilder just to make sure that you are up to date and getting the most out of the platform. So that being said, iFormBuilder is all about accelerating mobile workflows. The first part that we have set up with iFormBuilder is, the integration with the cloud and the iForm app and being able to see that data in real time in iFormBuilder. Well, the next step for you really is if you are using any other system, whether it's another web system or if you have an internal database, how do you accelerate that process even more? And at the end of today's session, when we go through some of the new things within Zerion software, there's a product called Gnosis, and that helps you accelerate this workflow even more. But we'll talk more about that later. So let's go into this customer solution. This is an agriculture workflow, and what I have here on this slide is actually a video. So if you want to refer back to it later, you can, but I'm going to walk you through that process for the user. So the first step here is we're going to start by collecting some data in iForm. Okay, so at this point you should all be able to see my iPad. And I'll just go into iForm, and very simply I only have two forms assigned to me here. I have the produce field inspection and agricultural field survey. So let's start by going to the produce field inspection. The first option that I have up here is to view reports. Now, why that's great is because while I'm out in the field, I can see what was done previously. And if I click on that field, it actually brings me to Google. So in this custom solution, we have an integration with Google spreadsheets to be able to see the data instead of seeing it in iFormBuilder. So if I need to look at the reports, I could from the form itself. Let me go back to the form. And let's fill this out. So we have our farm. We'll go to farm B. We'll say it's field 2 here. I can take a picture. But let me go ahead and capture multiple trials. And we'll select our plant. We'll take some broccoli. And we'll say that it's very firm. Put in the height. If there's defects, I can include that, but I'll just say no and hit done. Now let me take additional information. Let's now choose a tomato. And we'll say the same thing. We're just able to move that around. If we say yes, then it adds some additional information. So what kind of defects does this tomato have? And I could select all the defects and add some comments as well. Then hit done. And we'll do one more here. This time we'll use a potato. We don't have any defects, and then we'll hit done again. I have to sign off saying this is all accurate. And then I'll just hit done. Now if you have auto sync turned on, then this would of course automatically sync to the cloud once it's been completed. For this inspection or for this workflow, I'm actually going to keep this on my device until I also fill out the agricultural field survey. So I'll just enter my name here. Very simple form. There are some smart controls that have been added as well. I can choose the date. It's defaulted to today, so I'll keep that as is. Farm A. Now with Farm A, you'll notice some other fields populated. Let's say, let's add 5 to 7, and then we've performed a calculation down here below. We have some farm infractions. We could type those in and then hit done. Now that I've completed these records, I'm going to go back and I'm going to sync my device. And now if I head over here, I already have the Google spreadsheet open. You'll notice I have 4 tabs open. And this is where I've kind of mapped out here what we're actually seeing. So we have the field inspection summary, which is on this page, and this is all this is telling us is it's a summary for the parent form just for the manager's viewing. So I can decide who actually sees this. You'll notice the date of inspection, who filled it out, what farm, and these the top 2 things that we see up here are the ones that were completed by me, and one of them was done just a few minutes ago. So that's how fast it is. Next, we have the field trial summary, and it's for each subform record. And what's great about this, when you look at it, you now have colors to quickly identify if there was a problem and which ones had defects. So you can see here that's red. If it's red, then it had defects. If it's green, then it was all set. And so our broccoli didn't have any defects, but our tomato did, and that's why it's turned red. So as a supervisor, I can quickly identify in real time what problems I'm having. And then lastly, with the individual inspection summary, I'm able to choose which vegetable, and it will yield all the transactions. So if I go over to the individual inspection, right now I'm looking at lettuce. Well, what if I go in and we know that actually I only have view rights here, but if I wanted to change that, I know that I just put in tomato. So I would be able to edit that and see just the tomato responses. And so I can really make a good analysis of the data in real time. And like I said, and like we saw, we were able to actually open these reports from our mobile device and from our form, and that way we can see that information without having to go to the web if I am a manager. So this top field the top view reports button is using our attachment widget, and now as the manager I can see everything that is going on, and I can search through it if I needed to. So there we go. All right, Ella, have there been any questions coming in on this?
No questions so far, but 2 comments, I guess, on what kinds of, the question you were asking earlier about what kinds of things they're doing.
Sure.
One of them would be forwarding data to the internal server, and then another one was also kind of similar with downloading overnight data automatically and then feeding it into their database. It's both a bit similar.
Oh, those are very similar, and those are great questions as well. And for follow-up questions for those individuals, if you wouldn't mind telling us what kind of database you're using and if you're a developer, and then I can kind of advise you accordingly. With this customer solution, though, I do want to see if Tak, my colleague, do you have any additional notes that you want to share about that workflow, or if there's anything people should keep in mind if they want to develop a workflow like this?
Hello?
Hi, we can hear you perfectly.
Oh, good. Yeah, just so Berit, you cover most of the basic workflow that they're supposed to do when they wanna feed the information to Google. So just what they need is just a Google's JavaScript that will make everything happen in the back end.
Great, and thank you, Tak, and she'll be here, and so if there are more technical questions, she can help answer those if I can't. So thank you guys for that, and now let's move forward and try to help you out a little bit more and get you started with this automation. So, most of you already know this information, and that's why you're actually on this call, because you want to eliminate human error, you want to automate your workflow, you want to save time and money, and you want to have this information in a faster, more comprehensive workflow. And you really want, a lot of us at least, don't want to be doing the same thing every morning, downloading the files that were done or the records that were completed yesterday and then importing it somewhere else. You just want to make that automated, and that's what we are here to help you do. So step one is just understanding the iFormBuilder data. And this is just very simply, most of you are already aware of this, but it's just making sure that you do know that there is a difference between our data views and our data feeds. Now, when it comes to integrating, it's important that you understand what the data feeds look like, because this is what you'll be using for your integration process. You're actually going to be using the metadata and the data column names that are supplied in with these feeds. So what we've done here is I have a quick, just a little screenshot here to kind of show you what that metadata would look like. And if you aren't familiar with it, I do suggest you just go into your FormBuilder account, download the XLS feed, not the view, and take a look and see where you have that metadata in the very beginning, and then you have all the data column names for your data that's being collected throughout. What's also really important to remember when you are looking at your data is how, yes, the data column names are being used for the integrations, but how option list data is being viewed. So there is a difference. You won't actually see the text or the label of the option that the user selects when you're looking at the metadata in a feed. You'll use either the index value or the key value. So depending on what feed you're going to use will change what you're seeing for the option list values, and then you may want to change your form a little bit so that you do see the label in your form as well as the index value or the key value for those options. This is just breaking down what each piece of that metadata is and how it's going to be used. So the way that I think about it here is we have a lot of these are either created or modified. The created is the first time that user touched that form, and the second that record was started, essentially. The modified is the last time that it was touched. And modified can be either on the user's device, it can be modified on the server, so in iFormBuilder.com, or it can be modified through the API. So it's very helpful to know what that is and what it stands for. So let's go forward here. In that workflow that we had with that customer solution, what they had done is they had set up a post URL so that every time a record was submitted from iFormBuilder, it automatically posted to that Google script and to that Google Sheet. That's how we were able to see in real time the data that I tested for you today on this call. So first thing is knowing where to actually use this post data. So let me just hop out over here. When it comes time to adding a post URL to your form, you go under Form Assignment. And once in Form Assignment, you'll select your parent form and just click Assign. Now at the bottom, you'll see a section that says Post Data. And this is what we have, this is where we see the post data endpoint that we had set up for Google. So if I go into Edit Endpoint, and this is all the details that I have for this post URL and for the configuration to work the way that I require it to. The name can be whatever you want. The endpoint URL is actually developed by the web tool that you're using. So for this instance, we were using Google, and Google created this endpoint URL. There are a lot of other tools out there, a lot of other web services that will give you this endpoint URL as well. And if they don't, I'm sure if they have some support, or if you can't find it, you can quickly ask them. And I know me myself, I actually sent a help desk article or help desk topic to another web tool because I was trying to figure out if they had this, and really why not, because a lot of groups do. The next piece that you have here is the post data format. So if you do not know, or a lot of times wherever you're posting the data to, they'll require that you have it either as XML or JSON, and you'll learn from them what it should be. Those are the two options you have here, XML or JSON. And then you'll have that set up. Basically, the criteria is for the post data format is coming from where you're posting the data to. The content type, if you want to do the key value pair like we have here, you can do that. The error email you'll want to set up, as well as the notification and guaranteed delivery. So you can have multiple forms going to the same endpoint, and you can also have multiple endpoints for a singular form. So it's really helpful that way. The next thing I want to point out here is a lot of times people are concerned because they have they want to do a post like this, but they have subforms, and subforms can have multiple records, and it isn't actually defined on how many records they can have. And so there is a way to use, like with Google Script, you'd have to have it so that it creates a loop so that it'll constantly make a new format to meet the needs that you have for the amount of multi-link subform records coming in.
Hey, Berit, we have a quick question.
Sure.
So is there, while you're talking about, I guess, taking data out, is there also the, I guess, reverse of getting third-party data into iForm, not using the CSV upload?
Yes, there is, and that's done with our API. That can be configured if you have a dedicated database, or if you don't have a dedicated database. One way to do it is via using our API, and if you don't know what API is, I'll be talking through it a little bit later, but it is for developers. Another, in a simpler way actually, is through a wonderful tool called Zapier. And Zapier is made so that a non-developer can do development work essentially. And I'll walk you through that momentarily as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Elahe?
That's it for now, but one of our comments earlier about forwarding data into the internal server, they're actually not developers, so talking about Zapier would be great.
All right, perfect. All right, and here I just have another example of what it looks like for the post URL. So these are just different tools that we're using where they gave me that URL. All I had to do is copy and paste that in the post data and create a new endpoint from that URL that other web tool gave me. So integration ideas, and this is where Zapier is one of them that we're going to talk about, but some of these other ones are, there's Clipfolio, which is a dashboard tool. There's WebMerge, and actually I'll hold off on telling you about all of these, but just to be simple, these are only 6 options, and there are thousands of web tools out there. And like I said, most of them do give you the ability to integrate using post URLs. It's just asking them about that for that integration to occur. But let's talk through some of these. So Zapier, and this is the one I'm going to actually show you too, but this is for the non-developers. This is where you're able to connect. Zapier has over 500 different web applications, and you're able to connect them and automate your workflow through Zapier. One thing just to note here is that you must have access to the API apps to be able to leverage Zapier. So those of you who are logging into iFormBuilder.com, you should see under the company tab, you should see where it says API apps. For those of you who have a dedicated database, if you're not a server admin, you may not see where it says API apps, and you may need to ask your server admin if you can have permission for the API so that you can leverage Zapier as a tool. Another thing that I want to note here before I show you Zapier in action really is that before you even start using Zapier, you're going to want to make sure that both areas are all set up, or both data sources are all set up. So for instance, I want to make sure that I've created my form and I've collected data in my form before I set up my Zap. But let's say I'm having it go to a, let's say Salesforce. I also want to make sure that wherever I want the data to be populated in Salesforce, then I've created those fields in a table there so that it can match up before I create my Zap. So let's go ahead and I'll go to zapier.com. Just log in here. For me, I'm on the free account still. This is, I actually was talking to one of my colleagues the other day where we're talking about potentially getting a paid account, but right now it's a lot of just testing, so I'm able to turn off and on these different zaps that you create. But let's make a zap, or actually first and foremost, let's go under and explore. If you scroll down here, you'll see all 500 plus apps that they have available. If you want to filter by category, you can do that. If you also just want to search for one, like if I wanted to look for iFormBuilder, I can quickly find that here. But there are so many different tools that they have available that I'm sure you'll either be able to find one that you currently have or one that will work for you. For those of you who have like a MySQL database and you're trying to get that in there, you can, I believe you can just do, oh, I thought it was there. Oh, here we have, yep, MySQL, so you're able to integrate it from there as well. So let's now go and make a Zap. To start, you may say, I want everything to come, either I can choose to start with the trigger as iFormBuilder, and if I do that, then what that's saying is that every time a record is submitted in iFormBuilder, I want it to go to this location. So I want this action to occur. If I were to choose iFormBuilder as the action and have something else listed here, it would be every time maybe something is updated in Salesforce, then make a new record in iFormBuilder. So that's how you're able to post data into iFormBuilder with Zapier. And just to give you an idea on some of the triggers we have for iFormBuilder, you can have it set so that it can create a new user, a new form, a new company profile, new record, or add a new widget to a form. For iFormBuilder as an action, you can have it update a record assignment, create a record, create a user, update a form assignment, create a new widget, create a form itself as well. So you could have a whole form automatically be generated and created based off of questions that you had, maybe fields that you had it added to another document or another web service. So it's really amazing in that way. So I'll just say, let's add every time a new record is submitted, then maybe I want a new form assignment to happen. So I can actually keep these triggers all in iFormBuilder as well. All I do is hit continue. I've already connected my account, so I already have this here. But if you haven't connected your account, or if you're just getting started with Zapier and testing it out, you would just choose connect a different iFormBuilder account. And if you log into iFormBuilder.com, you'd place in www here. If you log into a dedicated database, then you'd put in that dedicated database where I now have the www.
Hey, Berit.
Yep.
Can an edit or an update to a form be used as a trigger, or is it just the ones that you mentioned?
Only the ones that I have mentioned here. There are ways to do that with our API, so that is for more of our developers.
Awesome.
All right, so we'll continue. Then I have to choose another account. I'm assuming that for this case, I'm probably going to have my two iFormBuilder accounts connected. But as you can see, if you had more than one iFormBuilder accounts, then you could connect them through there as well. Because this is a dedicated database, I would choose the profile. Now, for those of you at iFormBuilder.com, it would only show you the one profile that you have access to. And so I'll just choose one of that I have here just for this example. After I choose my profile, I then choose the form that I have, and then just have to include your email address so that every time there's a problem, you receive an email letting you know that it was not successful in posting to your end location. So I'd go through the same process, and I would choose what company profile that I need this assignment done in. I'll keep it all in one. I'll choose the form again. I can choose a different form this time around. And then I can say, who do I assign it to? So what person should be getting this assignment after every time that record has been submitted. I can also choose if they have collect rights or view rights on that specific form assignment. And that's Zapier as a whole. And again, it's an awesome tool. And for those non-developers, I do suggest that you get started with that. For those of you who are developers, starting with Zapier can also be really helpful because you can quickly, number one, it'll save you some time, but you can also quickly identify what kind of actions you want to occur and how you can test your workflow a little bit there.
So one last question on Zapier triggers and how that works in relation to subforms.
Was that it?
Yeah. Well, I guess does it work for all records coming in from subforms, or does it need to be treated differently?
So yeah, subforms are going to be attached to the parent form, and so all that data will come through. What you want to make sure that you do is, and this is actually even before you create your Zap, is when you're creating your form and you test your form, make sure you fill out every single field in that form. Because if you don't, then the Zapier actually won't recognize those fields when you're trying to match up the information. So if you have a subform, make sure you've completed that subform before you've added it to your, or before you've started to create your Zap. But subforms are included, and it does work when you are configuring Zapier. All right, Ella, hey, just keep interrupting me if anything else comes up. But we'll now go into WebMerge, which is another paid service. But what WebMerge is able to do is you're able to create a custom PDF or a custom report and have it so that every time a record is submitted in iFormBuilder, it'll be posted to WebMerge and it'll fill in the set criteria that you've already put together in WebMerge. It'll fill in those fields, and then it could automatically be sent as an email to whoever needs access to that PDF. The reason that this is helpful is if you look on the left-hand side, this is what our PDF generally looks like in iFormBuilder. Yes, you can add some customizations. You can say what fields you want to be shown. You can add your own logo and everything for downloading a PDF from iFormBuilder. But what you can't do is move objects around. And that's where WebMerge is really helpful because you're really able to meet a specific document criteria. And if you already have a PDF that you're usually just filling in, then you can actually upload that to WebMerge and then just match up the fields from iFormBuilder that need to populate those fields, and then you're all set. So if you work for a government and you're always filling in the same exact PDF, then you're able to just automate that by uploading it to WebMerge, matching the fields from iFormBuilder, and then it'll automatically be generated, which is really, really helpful. Another tool, another paid service is Clipfolio. Again, this is a dashboard tool. This is where it is extremely valuable to be able to visualize that data and to be able to see it in real time. And that's what Clipfolio and other web service tools or dashboard tools like Clipfolio do really well. You're able to have it so that every time a record is submitted in iFormBuilder, it'll be posted to this dashboard, and whoever has access to that dashboard will be able to see that in real time and to see those results. Another integration, and this is for those GIS individuals, those mapping gurus, I guess. This is where we do have an integration from Esri into iFormBuilder, and this is where you have a couple different options with this integration. We've done one workflow example here where you are maybe you want to use one of the Esri apps. So you're on an iOS device and you want to use the collector app because maybe you have a specific map that you want to start from, or you want your users to start from. What you can do there is you could have them tap a point from your collector app and it'll launch the iForm app, and it'll pre-populate some of the form fields from that point. And then once you sync iForm, it'll automatically update your ArcGIS account, and you're able to see that in real time. For those of you, maybe, and another workflow here is you don't have to use the collector app. You can also just have it so that every time a record has been updated in iForm, it'll be posted to your ArcGIS Online account. And this is done through connecting your ArcGIS Online account to your iFormBuilder account. And this is, let me go back here. You would use a link similar to this one. This is for my training account, but for those of you who have your own account or own dedicated database where it says training, you would replace your dedicated database URL. For those of you who are on iFormBuilder.com, it would be just www.iformbuilder.com, and that's how you'd be able to connect your ArcGIS Online account to your iFormBuilder account.
Berit, we have a couple questions coming in.
Sure.
So can Klipfolio be set up with permissions? Essentially, every client, let's say we have multiple clients, they can all have their own site that would show the inspections for their company in a dashboard, or can be customized in that way.
Klipfolio does have those options. I'm not sure on all the different permissions that they allow for you, but I am pretty positive that they have that ability. Yes.
And thinking about it now, I think actually one of our customers is doing that with their clients as well. So I'll include that in the email that goes out afterwards.
Thank you. And then the next thing is here. If I just click on this this link in our in the document in the PDF that I'll be sharing with you, this is where you're going to be able to see additional information on how to connect. And we have a group called the Hunger Project who actually just did a great project with iFormBuilder and did a wonderful dashboard. And I don't know if Ella, if you have that link handy, but maybe we could show that as well.
Sure thing.
So the next piece that we have here is just what we actually showed earlier for the customer solution, where we have and I've just included some links here for integrating with Google. Now, a lot of times people think, okay, well, I have Google spreadsheets, I have Excel spreadsheets. It's the same thing. But the biggest difference here is with Google being online and being a cloud web service tool, then you're able to automate your workflow, and you're able to just have it so that iFormBuilder is, every time a record is added in iFormBuilder, you can have it posted to that sheet so that you can see it in real time, and then you don't have to download anything. It's already there. The other piece here is that in today's example, we went through how to automate it and have it go through a Google spreadsheet to create that kind of dashboard feel that we had, or even that color changing based off of the user's input. But another option that you have is to do a Google Doc. So where WebMerge is really, really powerful as a way to create your own custom PDF, you can even do that within Google as in a Google Doc instead. So if you don't have the finances to go for a paid service, then you can do it you can set it all up in Google just by matching fields and using that information to match that up. And TAC, if you're still on our call, if you could, in the next couple minutes, if you could actually open up an example where you've actually generated a PDF for Google, then I would love to give you presenter rights and you can show off what that looks like to kind of show how to match it all up as well. But I'll give you some time. So this is where if you do, this is a little screenshot, so it kind of shows it, but the idea is that you're able to add in your own logo and then where you see store name, and then we have our percentage sign, and then store underscore name percentage. This is where you're able to call to the data column names of your form fields and match those up. The next piece after you've actually matched those up is you would go into the script editor in Google, and that's under the tools section. We do have some examples of some scripts that have been written, and this is listed and included in the PDF that I'll share with you. But we have a Google Sheet one as well as a Google Doc script example. So what you would do is you would just take that example. So I'll just launch that from here. I would copy this, all of this post, and then I'd have to update it to point to the data column names that I have. And that's where you see in the copy body replace text where it says, you see the pound sign and name, I'm sorry, the percentage sign and name. And this is referring to where I had that set up in the visual aspect of that Google Doc. So we do have these script examples to kind of help you, and it's just going through it and matching up the fields and the data column names.
Ready for some more questions?
Sure.
So I guess can you just talk about which one of these can, or if any of them can export from PDF to, I guess like SharePoint online was the one question. I guess WebMerge possibly.
Yes, we have had groups do the route of doing WebMerge in the past. I haven't known of anyone going the Google route, but I do know of customers who've gone to get it into SharePoint. They've gone from iFormBuilder to WebMerge to SharePoint.
Awesome, thanks. This next one is actually, I don't know if TAC might be able to talk towards one of the workflows that she was working on, and it might be a bit specific, but it could be helpful for many people with, let's say employees are going to many different cities or many different clients multiple times. Is there a way that they can automate almost the option list? So let's say they go to a client and the employee can pick from a pick list and that they're at that client. Fill out the form, submit the record, and then if they come back again another time, it will be on that list again, or have some sort of workflow that will have, I guess, limit the kind of interactions that the employee will have and not overwhelm the forms, but that will also give them the ability to have some sort of automation with their option lists.
I don't know if TAC wants to talk about this. What I do know is we'd have to get more information on your project, but what some groups will do is if the first time they go to that specific store or that specific location and they fill out that form, we'll just call that Form A. Now the second time that they go to that same location, they'll fill out Form B. And Form B would use a smart table search that would call to Form A, and then it would pre-populate that information from when their first visit. That's not so much updating those option lists, but that is one way to enhance your workflow. To update option lists, those need to be updated either manually by typing it in the form builder, or you'll have to update those option lists with Zapier or our API. Actually, I don't even know if Zapier updates the option. I don't think Zapier updates the option list, but I would say our API. TAC, do you want to talk about that or answer that question as well?
Yes. So we can just use the API to just we can use Google Doc to update all the option lists. We can connect iFormBuilder option list and using the API and connect that form to Google, and then just use the script, and whenever that you update the list in the Google Sheet, it will just update the iForm option list too.
All right, thank you, TAC. I appreciate that. And LA, if they have any more questions, just let us know. Are there any other questions as well?
There was one, and I think you touched on it a little earlier, about getting data from an Excel spreadsheet into iFormBuilder?
So to get data into iFormBuilder from an Excel spreadsheet, you'd actually want to save it as a CSV file. And then to bring in that data, when you save it as a CSV file, it has to have the same data column names that you have placed in there for that specific form. And then in the data tab, you would go into, let's just select one of these, because we have our database form. If it's used for if it's used for a lookup table, then you can upload the CSV data here. Now, if you're trying to automate this, this is where you would, if couldn't necessarily go from Excel, or at least I'm not sure on how to do that. You'd probably, to automate this, this is where you'd want to, instead of using Excel, you'd probably want to use a Google spreadsheet. And every time that Google spreadsheet was updated, then you could have it automatically create a new record or new data set within your iFormBuilder account. And again, Zapier and API can help with automating this as well. Hey, we good?
Yep, we're good to go. Thank you.
Okay, so now for those of you, even if you're not a developer, if you've heard me say API, now I'll finally tell you what it is. So API allows you to do a custom web service. It is a custom web service. So it allows businesses to automate your unique workflows. So Zapier does have some, it does allow for unique workflows to non-developers, but if you start to get real deep down into the nitty-gritty, then Zapier may not be able to meet your needs, and that's where you'll need a custom web service. Then another thing to note here is that the iFormBuilder 8, the web service allows for bi-directional data flow. So a lot of what we talked about here was that post data and using the post data URL to push information into another spot or another web service or tool. But the API also allows for the data to come in. And that's also what TAC was talking about with if you have, let's say you update a Google spreadsheet and you want that updated in iFormBuilder, then you would use the API. And Zapier as a tool is using iFormBuilder API as well. So why would you want to develop it to create a custom web service? One reason is if you want to integrate data from multiple sources. Another is to redefine your workflow. And the third is just to have that full task automation, i.e. like updating your option lists. If something occurs within maybe you're using a MySQL database and you want anything to be updated automatically, then an option list in particular is what a lot of groups will do. This is where the API really comes in handy. Here are just some links for those of you who are developers, or if you have a developer on your team that's not on the call, be sure to send this along to them on really how to get started. This last one here is just a fun, maybe not a fun one, but one that one of our developers sent over to our whole group earlier, just to get yourself familiar with what a JSON Web Token is. And another point that I have here is for those of you who are developers, you may have found that creating a user guide is really is a must-have essentially when you are going this route, because you're able to define and give your users all the information that they need to meet the standard that you've set forth for this integration. Here's just some other links to other integrations that we have available to you. And next, getting near the end here, I just want to go through some of the newer iFormBuilder releases, I should say. One is the form packages. This one I use, I think, like at least once a day, but I almost feel like I'm using a form packager, once an hour, just because of what I'm working on currently. But what you're able to do is you're able to create a form package that has multiple forms in it. So you'd assign your parent forms, and then you download that form package, and you can share it with someone else on your team who is in a different iFormBuilder account. Now, if I did that, then they would use the package import to import that into their account, and now they can change anything on that form and make it personalized without having to start from scratch. A lot of times when we do our form building webinars, I actually send along a form package as well so that you can import that into your account and have access to that to be able to make any changes if you needed to. We also have stored filters. And for those of you who have looked into our data, you've probably, hopefully you've noted that we have this because it's a huge help when you are trying to, if you have to make any edits to forms that you have in your account, but also you're able to create a filter to only be able to view certain fields and edit those certain fields. And that editing it is this new table edit view, and this came about in the last couple of months. So when you go into the stored filter view, then you now have a button that says table edit view. You'd select one of those filters that you've created, and then you can start editing that a lot easier than the process that we had previously. And the release 8.5, it became available in the end of November. There was an iOS update, but also a server update. And you probably have noticed this if you have gone through and you've updated your iOS device. I really like that it has the new map interface. I find to be a lot easier to use, and there's more controls that you have. Another thing that was great about this most current release is if you wanted to force the user to either take a picture, take a new picture using the image or drawing widget, then you'd use the reference ID that says camera_disabled. If you want to force them to take a picture from their other way around. So if you want to force them to take a picture, then you do photo_library disabled, or vice versa. You're able to just really have a little bit more control over that. And then with the server update, we just had the CSV upload. We had to get that fixed and updated some performance issues. Now, the last thing here is in the beginning of today's session, I said our goal here is to accelerate mobile workflows. So iFormBuilder is one way to do that, and with the post URL in the iFormBuilder platform and the API, we have been able to give you that skills and that possibility. Now, Gnosis is a new platform, or a new product that we have from Zerion software that I want to point out to you because this is another way that you're going to be able to accelerate your workflow. Gnosis is a data refinery, and what that really means in the simplest terms is that you're able to take multiple data sources in, make changes to them in a much faster and easier way than having to go into, let's say, 10 different Excel files and one online file to be able to make all those changes in the separate places. So the idea behind it is that, let's say you have iFormBuilder data, you have an Excel file, you're using the ODK, so an Open Data Kit data, and you have those three different files and data sets. You can put all of those in one bucket. From there, you can say go to this, meet this criteria and go in this bucket, and then go here, working your way through this process. Or you can filter it and aggregate it based off of different criteria that you set forth. Oops. And if I just jump over here, I just want to talk a little bit more about that. So one of the things is filtering that I mentioned. So you're able to take one data set and then filter it by gender. Another is the transformation. So you're able to append and change that data to match another set. So if not all data sets are following the same standard, you can edit it and transform it in Gnosis. This is a little bit more advanced here, which is done from single record with subforms into multiple record sets. So this is where you have a parent form with multiple subform records. You can have it go into different data sets instead of it all being in one, which is really helpful as well. You can combine records from multiple sources. So these are two different sources that then go into one. And the last one is you can, you can merge data from the two different sources and have that go into one source as well. I didn't really show you Gnosis. I didn't, log in and show you what it looks like. But if this is something that you're interested in and want more information on, we'd be happy to set up a call and go through what that looks like and to see if Gnosis is a good tool for you. And just the last thing here is our different support options. So if you haven't visited our Customer Success Center, I strongly suggest that you do. And if you haven't created an account there, then you should definitely sign up for one. Weirdly enough, it's just to sign up for an account, you have to click on where it says sign in. And that by signing in, and then that'll give you actually more tools essentially, because you'll be able to follow articles. You'll be able to see if you ever submit any requests, then you're able to see the status on those as well. Next is just our release notes. Make sure that you follow our release notes and that you can follow any article once you've signed up for the Customer Success Center. And that way, every time a new release happens, then you'll receive an email with all the details on that release. We then have our different training options always available to you and your team. We have a community forum where people can come in and voice their opinions for whichever verticals they're coming from, but we also have a wonderful community forum called Vote for New Features. And with that, that's where we get all our ideas for the platform, and the things that get the most votes, that's where our next product work goes towards. If you ever need support on projects, we do have services that we'd be happy to supply to your team. And the last thing here is our certification program. Our certification program is new in 2015. We do have our next session starting in January, and this link provided for you in this article, we'll send that along, will allow you to sign up. And we have ebooks available to kind of support you as well. All right, Ella, are there any questions?
We have one that I missed a few minutes ago about the API, and if there's a way to solve the issue of the token changing every hour.
So with the we've designed it for security reasons, I'm sure, as you can imagine, so that the token does change every hour. Now, once you've become more familiar with iFormBuilder, you'll be able to create a new, you'll use the API call to create a new token every time it's needed.
Okay, so then you would only be creating it if you needed that security aspect?
The token is needed for every API call that you make, and so what they would do is one of the API calls that you would have in your script is that every time that API call would occur, it would create a new token, and that would just be a part of the process that you've created.
So then would they have to, sorry, another one just came in, manually changing the token before downloading the data then? Or is there a way to automate the download process?
To someone's downloading the data?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're downloading the data, I guess we'd have to talk a little bit more about that specific project. And if that individual wants to reach out to me, that would be great. Just to be clear, a lot of times when you're using the API, it is to post the data somewhere else or push the data somewhere and not necessarily download it locally to a device or locally to your computer. That is an option, but I think whoever that is, if you want to just reach out to me and send me an email, I'd be happy to set something up so we can talk about your project in a bit more detail.
Great, thank you.
And the last thing I'll say about the API is if you're becoming familiar with API, then you'll definitely want to use this resource. And what you see here is the different API calls that you have for iFormBuilder. You have your token resource. So this is where if you are going through this token process, It just goes through what you need for that. Oops, went a little too far here. So we have our token resource. And if you go to inspect the token attributes, then this is where it gives you that information, and you have the option to create a new token as well. All right, well, thank you all for taking your time out and joining us for today's webinar. If you have any questions, just feel free to send them to me, as well as go through our help desk and go on our chat and talk to one of our iFormBuilder agents. I want to especially thank Tak and Elahe for joining me on today's session. And happy holidays, everybody.